This is a response to the video by Sheep in Wolf's Clothing titled "The Bible, a Poetic Science Book." I aim to rebut each claim made in this video by illustrating how the various biblical passages cited have been mistranslated, misinterpreted, or both. Let's get started. This conclusion appears to be based upon reading this verse in isolation and selective use of translations to English. As a contrasting example, I'm going to read verses 5 through 7 from chapter 26 from the New Jewish Publication Society of the Tanakh. The shades tremble beneath the waters and their denizens. Sheol is naked before him. Abaddon has no cover. He it is who stretched out Zaphon over chaos, who suspended earth over emptiness. Now, based upon this translation, it doesn't appear that it's referring to literally nothing. In fact, it appears that Zaphon, or the heavens, are being stretched out on top of Sheol, which is mentioned in the previous verse. So this is something which is supported by the Oxford Bible Commentary on the book of Job, which has this to say. This hymn has mythical elements, including the name Zaphon, the mountain of Baal in the north, similar to Mount Olympus in Greek mythology. A naked Sheol stands exposed before God, who proceeds to cover it with the cosmic mountain and the earth. One expects it to be the heavens that God stretches out. So it then mentions Job chapter 9, verse 8, Psalm 104, verse 2, Isaiah 40, verse 22. So I'm also going to read from the Anchor Bible commentary on the book of Job regarding this specific verse, and just the second part, since that's what's being referred to in this video. It does not seem likely, as suggested by Butenweiser, that the author of Job shared Pythagoras' advanced astronomical knowledge of, quote, the obliquity of the ecliptic and of the Earth's being a sphere freely poised in space, end quote. The question in 38, 6 through 7 hardly suggests that the author rejected such primitive notions of cosmography. And to illustrate this, I'm going to read verses 1 through 7 from chapter 38, which illustrates more of the author's knowledge of cosmology. Then Yahweh replied to Job out of the tempest and said, "Who is this who darkens counsel, speaking without knowledge? Gird your loins like a man. I will ask, and you will inform me. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundations? Speak if you have understanding. Do you know who fixed its dimensions, or who measured it with a line? Onto what were its bases sunk? Who set its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together, and all the divine beings shouted for joy." Let me read Hebrews 11:3 for you. By faith we understand that the worlds were prepared by the word of God, so that what is seen was made from things that are not visible. There's no inference to the existence of particles here. So like the Oxford Bible Commentary has to say regarding this passage, the creation of the visible from the invisible, resembling other formulas for creation, denies the autonomy of the natural world. So it's simply reinforcing the idea that everything has been created by God. And to provide further illustration of this, I'm going to read a couple other of the creation formulas which this commentary mentions. I'm going to read 2 Maccabees 7:28 and 2 Enoch 24:2. So 2nd Maccabees. I beg you, my child, to look at the heaven and the earth and see that everything that is in them, and recognize that God did not make them out of things that existed. And in the same way, the human race came into being. So the New Oxford Annotated Bible mentions regarding this verse in 2nd Maccabees that Origen and later Christian thinkers took this verse as evidence in supporting the doctrine of God creating the world out of nothing. And the passage from 2nd Enoch, and I bowed down to the Lord, and the Lord spoke to me, Enoch, beloved, all that you see, all things that are standing finished, I tell to you, even before the very beginning, all that I created from non-being, and visible, physical things from invisible, spiritual. So, not referring to the formation of and the assembly of disparate particles. While translations of this verse into English do read running water, others read fresh water. And the reason why is the root word for fresh or running is chai, which means living or alive. So the emphasis is not necessarily that it's running water, but that it's fresh water. It's not standing water. And if the claim is being made that this is something which was special knowledge to the Israelites, I'm going to link to an article from the Canadian Medical Association Journal from July of 1932, which demonstrates that the Cretan city of Knossos under the Emperor Minos had a very elaborate plumbing and sanitation system hundreds of years before even the earliest of biblical traditions were written down. And this doesn't say anything about germs. Reading that into the text is anachronistic. As illustrated previously in this video, using Job chapter 38 in an effort to demonstrate that the Bible contains modern scientific knowledge is very problematic. And this verse doesn't help the case much. First thing is, the word translated into English as springs of the sea. This is the only place in the Hebrew Bible where this word is used. So there's no external confirmation available that this translation into English is precisely what it means. In addition to that, the Anchor Bible commentary for the book of Job mentions looking up chapter 28, verse 11 for additional notes. So I'd like to read both chapter 38, verse 16 and chapter 28, verse 11. They read, "Have you entered into the springs of the sea, or walked in the recesses of the deep? The sources of the rivers they probe, hidden things they bring to light." Now, there's actually two different phrases here with some mythological import. In chapter 38 is the phrase recesses of the deep. So the word translated here, deep, is the same word in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, which is referred to as the formless void from which God creates heaven and earth. And the verse in chapter 28 refers to the sources of the rivers. So this may be referring to, according to this commentary, the mythical dwelling place of the god El. But, at least according to this scholar, the mythological term is used here in Job merely as a poetic designation of the subterranean regions which man has the temerity to explore. it's possible that the phrasing in chapter 38 is being used in the same way. The problem with attempting to use this passage in this forensic manner is the surrounding context. For example, I'm going to read verse 2 of Jonah chapter 2. I called to Yahweh out of my distress, and he answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice. So this Sheol being the underworld, the realm of the dead, which according to Numbers chapter 16 is located directly underneath the earth. So are we going to continue to look to this passage in Jonah for scientific information? But let's continue and read verses 5 through 6. The waters closed in over me. The deep surrounded me. Weeds were wrapped around my head at the roots of the mountains. I went down to the land whose bars closed upon me forever. Yet you brought up my life from the pit, O Yahweh, my God. So we run into the word deep again in verse 5. This again is referring to the primordial waters, so upon which the earth is built. And in verse 6 it refers to pit. This is used synonymously with Sheol in various passages in the Hebrew Bible. So it's referring to a subterranean underworld. So is this something which oceanographers have discovered in the past 100 years? Leviticus 17:14 reads as follows: For the life of every creature, its blood is its life. Therefore I have said to the people of Israel, ye shall not eat the blood of any creature, for the life of every creature is its blood. Whoever eats it shall be cut off. So if we're going to read this verse in the way that this video does, we can insinuate that the blood of the animal in and of itself carries some kind of life force. Another explanation for why blood should not be eaten can be found in the sacrificial regulations in chapter 3 of Leviticus. So I'm going to read the second half of verse 16 and verse 17 from that chapter. All fat is Yahweh's. It shall be a perpetual statute throughout your generations in all your settlements. You must not eat any fat or any blood, because the food which has been given to Yahweh you should not eat. Does Yahweh get hungry? According to Genesis chapter 18, it seems that he does. To conclude, the Bible is not a science book. It can never be one. And attempts by proselytizers to make the Bible be something it cannot be accomplishes nothing but turning away people who know better.